Hey guys, it's Sarah. I'm back today to do the A to Z book tag, which I believe was created by Jen Campbell, who wrote Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops, More Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops, and The Bookshop book. I started out thinking that this was going to be a fairly easy tag to do, but it turns out it's a lot harder than what I was expecting. Just because finding 26 different last names, like starting with the different letters, was a lot more difficult than what I thought. So this list, as much as I tried to choose it from the bookshelves in my room, a few of these I couldn't fill because I just hadn't read authors under that last name. So I chose ones to be read, and then a few of these I haven't read yet. They're on my shelf. A couple of these are in ebook form, and so I don't actually have a physical copy here to show you today. But yeah, we're going to start with Jane Austen. The only Austen book that I've read is Pride and Prejudice, because I started with this, and it took me 2 years to finish this book. I had to put it down for at least 6 months, if not more, and then I started back up, and I love the second half. I just could not get into the first half of this book. So I don't really know what my collective thoughts are on Austen, but I'd love to read more of her works. I'm just a little weary about it. The second is Ray Bradbury for B. I haven't actually read The Illustrated Man yet, but in high school, I read 2 of his short stories. One was A Sound of Thunder, and the other one was There Will Come Soft Rain, which are 2 of my favorite short stories. A Sound of Thunder is about the butterfly effect. Essentially, this guy goes back in time, he steps off a path, and something happens, and when he goes back to his own time, everything has changed. There Will Come Soft Rain was about the aftermath of a nuclear war in a house that survived and how it was still going after everything else was dead. So yeah, it's good stuff. If you like sci-fi, or even if you don't like sci-fi, I would start there. Kind of really, it gets you into it. And then for C, I picked Truman Capote. I loved Breakfast at Tiffany's. I know a lot of people will say the book was way better than the movie. I don't know if I quite agree, but I do think they're very different. So if you liked or didn't like the movie, still read this book, because you never know. And I would love to read more Capote because I really like his writing style. So there's C. On to D, which is Dostoevsky. I read The Brothers Karamazov last year and really loved this. My friend had recommended this to me a long time ago, and I kept putting off reading it because it is quite a large novel. It was serialized when it came out, like a lot of old novels were. If you love books on morality and religion, that will be right up your alley. I really, my stool just dropped like 2 inches, no problem. E is for Dave Eggars. I read The Circle last year. I simultaneously loved and hated it. It's one of those books that this thing that seems like such a good idea gets out of control, like a lot of things do in our real world. So it's very real, but it's very not real at the same time. Good satire. Don't know if I'd recommend it, at least not to everyone, but if you like satirical novels about interesting technological, societal, psychological things, this book is for you. And then we have Jonathan Safran Foer, which, what can I say about him? I mean, his writing is absolutely beautiful. I cannot say enough good things. This is one of my favorite books ever. Yeah. I read this, and I read Everything is Illuminated. I just want him to come out with more, because I would read anything and everything that he's ever read. I know he wrote Eating Animals, but I'm a little weary about reading that book because I do eat meat. So that's F. Okay, so there was quite a few authors that I could have picked for G. I had a hard time choosing, but I thought I'd choose something that maybe I believe is a well-known book, but maybe not for everyone else. It's Ordinary People by Judith Guest. You can tell that I read this back in the day when I didn't like books so much, because I didn't care that this entire corner was ripped out, and now I care a lot, and I kind of want a new copy just because it's really bugging me. But this book was recommended to me by my mother back in junior high. I was looking for a book to read for a book report, and she told me to read this. She said, read this, watch the movie, both are really good, you will love it. And she was absolutely right. I love this book. If you don't know, it's about kind of an aftermath of a family tragedy that happens, and how it affects that family and their relationship. It's what got me to reading a lot of depressing books. It's kind of what started my love of psychology and the human mind and families. And I am drawn to any book that kind of has something to do with those things now. So this is what started it all. H is for Hemingway, but this is To Have and Have Not, made a long time ago, a movie based off this book, and it's actually one of my favorite classics. It stars Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. Wonderful movie. So I'm hoping this book will be just as wonderful. I know I talked about it in my last video. I recently read The Paris Wife, which I ended up really loving. And I have yet to read A Movable Feast, but I will do that next. And hopefully The Sun Also Rises. And this book, hopefully I like his writing, because I have a great desire to read his works. So we'll see what happens. I is for Irving. This is the only Irving book that I've read. I read this in high school and really just was not feeling this book. I know a lot of people loved it. I think it was just the length. Like I said with Austen, I was really busy in high school. I wasn't much of a reader. My focus was on dance, and I think a lot of the books that I had to read, that I was forced to read in high school, I ended up disliking, mostly because I was forced to read them at the time. And so I'd love to reread a lot of those, because I'd like to see if it was more of a mindset thing or if it was actually my opinion about the book. J, I chose Maureen Johnson, who wrote 13 Little Blue Envelopes, and I only own that in the ebook form. It's something that I feel like would be my ultimate adventure when I was younger. She gets letters from her aunt, and she travels around Europe looking and following these letters and doing this great big adventure of her life. Yeah, it's really touching and nice and sweet, and definitely a YA novel, but I mean, I appreciated it, and I was 18, 19 when I read it, so good times. For K, we have Franz Kafka and The Metamorphosis, which I read, we'll put quotes around that, in college for my classic literature class, and I put quotes around read because I believe I read 80% of this book, maybe a little bit less, quite a little book, but I was really swamped that semester between psych class and this classic literature class that I was taking and a bunch of other classes. And you will get to the point in college, definitely, where you don't finish all your readings. And this is a little short story novel thing. I didn't finish it, but I do wish I would, because I feel like a lot of people like this, and I don't really have an opinion either way, because I just didn't focus on it enough to have an opinion. Next author, I should say, is C.S. Lewis. I grew up reading Lewis, reading the Chronicles of Narnia. My mother really loved those books. She passed on that love to my brother and I. We both read those books, that whole entire series. I know I've read them at least 2 times. I've had someone read them to me more than that. Lewis. Important person in my life. And my brother got me this beautiful copy of Surprised by Joy and the Four Loves, which are about Christianity and Lewis's religious beliefs. I'm not even going to attempt her first name because I know I'm saying it incorrectly, like for a fact. Last name, Mafi, the author who wrote the Shatter Me series. I love her. I love her writing style. I love everything. Oh my god, those are the best books. Like, way to break my heart into a million pieces and get everything inside me. I love her. That's all I can say. If you haven't read those, or if you really hate descriptive writing, I wouldn't recommend her, but I love descriptive writing, so good times. Next up, we have Audrey Niffenegger wrote The Time Traveler's Wife. If you've seen the movie, read the book because the book was 10 times better. I was really angry when I saw the movie and found out that it was completely different. This is one of the most tragic books you will ever read. It is really sad. It haunted me for a very long time. It took me a while to get through this. Kind of along the lines of The Book Thief back there. When I read that, I was reminded of this and how I really like both of them, but the writing took me a while to get through. I don't know why. I don't know if that's just how they were written or if that's just the pace that I was reading it in. But they're both very great books. I really like her writing. Next up, we have an author who I have not read anything from her, but it's Joyce Carol Oates, and I have a copy of Missing Mom, which I found in a used bookstore in Traverse City, and wanted to pick up a copy because I've been wanting to read Oates for a while now, and yeah, hopefully I'll get around to it. I haven't read this yet, but there's that. Next up, we have Stephanie Perkins, who wrote Anna and the French Kiss, and then there's Lola and the Boy Next Door, and Isla and the Happily Ever After. It's behind me there. But yeah, the only one I've ever read is Anna and the French Kiss, and I really like this book in I like Maureen Johnson, where is really cutesy and definitely YA, but also just a great story. Entertaining, fast read. So if you want something to just sit down and kind of make you feel and get you out of your head, this is a good series to do that. Next up, we have Q, which I didn't have anyone that I had read or owned under Q, so I picked Matthew Quick, who wrote Silver Linings Playbook, which is one of my favorite movies ever, and so I really want to read that book, and hopefully that'll be good. R is for Rowling, and yeah, what is there to say? I mean, Harry Potter is one of the biggest books of my generation, we grew up with these babies. They're good stuff, so couldn't leave her off the list, I haven't read anything besides the Harry Potter series, though, so I haven't read any of her new stuff. Waiting to read that. I had quite a few choices for S as well, and it was hard for me to choose, but I went with Garth Stein because The Art of Racing in the Rain is one of my all-time favorite books ever. I like his writing style. I like the plot of this book. Haven't read anything else from him, so. But he's coming to Traverse City. He's actually coming and giving a talk, and I'd love to meet him. And yeah, good author. If you haven't read this book, read it because it's amazing. It will change your life. And then T is another kind of family-driven author that I chose. J R R Tolkien, who wrote The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series, a bunch of other stuff. He was friends with C.S. Lewis. I read this last year, really liked it, for the first time last year. Somehow my mom hadn't read these to us, but things that I remember when I was younger is my mom telling us about how much she loved these books. We went to go see all the movies as a family, and yeah, they were big in my house, so Tolkien, baby. U is for Leon Uris. This is my mom's book. It's sitting down on a shelf downstairs in her house, and I pass it every day, and so every day I think, oh, I know she's recommended that to me. I should probably read it along with the 50 other books that she's recommended. And because I didn't have another U author, I thought I'd bring this up and show you guys. And if you've read this, let me know, because it's a large book and I don't know when I'm going to actually get around to it. And then we're on to V, which is Kurt Vonnegut. I've read Slaughterhouse-Five. I plan on reading pretty much all of his books because I really like his writing, really like this book. I didn't at first. It took me kind of getting this book in order to love it. Like, I felt uncomfortable reading it the entire time, and then I kind of felt like he did that for a reason, and like I said, that made me love this book. W is Oscar Wilde, which I showed this book in the last book haul video that I made. So I haven't read this yet. It's just the only thing I owned with the last name W. So there's that. Okay, so I had the hardest time trying to find a name that started with X. There's not a lot of people who have their last name that start with X. And the book's called The Secret Piano, From Mao's Labor Camp to Bach's Goldberg Variation. And this is their name. So if you know how to pronounce that, let me know, because yeah, I'd be happy to learn how to pronounce that. And then for Y, I also didn't have a book for that, but I chose Richard Yates. His book, Easter Parade. When I read the description, it was about two daughters whose parents divorced, and they grew up to be very different people, and it's that whole, like, nature versus nurture thing, and, like, how people can grow up to be different under different environments. So we'll see if I can pick up a copy of that. And then last but not least, of course, is Carlos Ruiz Zafon. This is from the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series. One of my favorite series. Oh my god, so good. So good. This is the second book. The first is The Shadow of the Wind, which I love his writing and these books. And if you like mysteries at all, go read these because they're so good. Yeah, that's it. That's A through Z, man. Bye.